Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our weekly podcast, Retail Unwrapped. I'm very excited to welcome Warren Schulberg. He is the home guru and award-winning journalist and consultant. He also is one of our very esteemed writers at the Rodham Report. So welcome, Warren.
Thanks, Shelley. Always good to pod with you, and can't wait to dig into our topic today.
That's great. I'm always happy to have you on Retail Unwrapped. And today we're going to talk about something really interesting and very hot topic. This whole grassroots boycotting that we've been seeing across the industry. So I'm just going to jump right in and give a little context. Not that I need to, because I think everyone in our industry has been involved in these economic blackout conversations. But these are a little different. They're these grassroots movements that are coming up for the consumer. On last week, on February 28th, there was the People's Union USA, founded by John Schwartz, who was really targeting consumers to not shop at big businesses. So that was kind of referred to as the economic blackout. So, not shopping at Amazon, Target, Walmart, Nestle, these huge corporations. I'm not sure how successful it is, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But a lot of these are motivated by, corporate greed, so to speak, but we'll also get into more details about that. But what's happening now is another boycott for Target in particular regarding its pullback on its DE&I initiatives. And this is being orchestrated or organized by Reverend Jamal Bryant. And this is specific to the DEI rollback. So the economic blackouts last week are not specifically about DE&I, but the one for Target that's happening right now is. So I think the tension between consumer activism and economic reality really sits at the heart of these kind of boycotts that we're seeing. So let's start with Target. Warren, if you don't mind, what is going on?
So unfortunately for Target, they've sort of become the poster child for these kind of social protests. They were one of the more aggressive to institute DEI measures, and so they were applauded by folks who like them and chastised by those who don't support those kind of initiatives. And then they rolled them back again, as so many other companies have, including many retailers. So Target is not really doing anything that other retailers aren't doing the same thing, but just seems to, God forbid, I can't believe I'm going to say that, seems to be a target of all of this. So, if you can't go for the cheap jokes, why bother? So, Target is going to be the subject of this 40-day boycott that began on this past Wednesday. As you said, it's being led by a pastor from a Baptist church in Atlanta. It seems to be, the 40-day period seems to be coincide with Lent, and kind of makes some sense. As you said, it's grassroots. So it's so hard to figure out how effective these are, how widespread they are being supported. And unlike the ones we saw on February 28th, which, again, for a different reason, 40 days is a long time to ask consumers to pay attention to something. And so I'm not sure if I were leading something that I would put it at a 40-day window. Does seem kind of long. So, and also very hard to measure. Right. Target, their February numbers were soft, but they didn't say it had anything to do with social protests. It had more to do with the weather, and the weather has always been the great don't need my homework excuse for every retailer since retailing was invented. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
I think they're calling it, so talking about it's interesting, they're kind of coinciding it with Lent and calling it the Target fast, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I wonder, Warren, there's a huge demographic that relies on Target and Walmart and other values centered, companies. These are big corporate companies, but they're able to get prices low. So we have this whole demographic that relies on being able to get good
Yeah.
services, even groceries from these. So like you said, 40 days, are we expecting these consumers not to shop there? So therefore, are they just, going to be, changing their shopping habits to Walmart?
Well, you got to think that that's where some of that will go, if those shoppers, if you need to pick up groceries, or you need new sneakers for the kids, or laundry detergent, um, where are you going to go? I mean, that business will go to Walmart, it will go to Amazon, it will go to Kroger, and it will go to to Kohl's and Costco and all over the place. So, but comes back to how much business are we talking about, and how effective are these protests?
Right.
They get some headlines, they get some social media mentions, but I'm not sure how effective they are on bottom lines of companies.
So when we talk about the boycotts, obviously the one for Target's very clear. It's about them specifically rolling back their DE&I initiatives. What are some
Yeah.
of the other motivations that you're seeing in terms of these other types of grassroots boycotts?
Well, and again, you should mention that Target, in addition to being an early adapter of DEI measures, has also been a little more enlightened towards dealing with suppliers from minority groups, from women, and so they're definitely more vulnerable. And we'll have to see whether they continue that commitment to supporting those kind of vendors. Some of the vendors have said, "Hey, we're not sure we want to continue to do business with Target because of these pullbacks." So again, and Target's being pulled the other direction from I think there's a lawsuit in Florida from investors who said, "You didn't tell us that this DEI stuff was going to have a downside on your business." So they're really in a stuck between a rock and a retail place, and just not able to do it. So DEI is certainly one of the big deals. Um, there are some other social causes. As you said, the February 28th was just all about don't support big business because they're not supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and who knew that public companies were greedy? God, this is earth-shattering news, that they want to make money. So uh, again, you got a lot of different players, a lot of moving parts, and some of them are contradictory too.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something you said, and I'm so happy you brought this up because I think it's really relevant. I really want to follow the story on it, and that is the lawsuit that's being held coming against Target
Yep.
regarding the DEI initiative and the impact on the financial. And when you think about, Warren, I'm sure you have, because you and I are geeky this way. When you go through these annual reports and you look at the risk factors, like even like the pandemic that happened in 2020, that was written in, well before the pandemic, that a pandemic may have a negative impact on our business. So the fact that companies haven't yet written in something about policies, or I don't know. I mean, how can companies like protect themselves against every single thing?
Yeah, if it's 5 years ago, if you had said DEI to people, they would have thought you were talking about drunken driving things. It just wasn't. It just wasn't on anybody's radar. So, who's to say what kind of issues will pop up next that will impact these folks? It's just very difficult to project. And taking it in the longer range, companies have always had social positions, and probably supporting the Red Cross and the Girl Scouts was much less controversial. But the Girl Scouts have gotten their share of pushback. So it's just a more aware consumer and advocacy groups that now have the platform of social media to get their point out. If a local church group said we're going to have a protest, it probably didn't go much beyond the demographic and geography of that group. And now they can project out to the country. So the scale and dynamics have changed.
Absolutely. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that this, social media has really amplified the ability to get messaging out there. And I want to reflect back. So this kind of grassroots, boycotting or activism, and that's happening. This isn't new. Remember last year, I think it was maybe a year and a half ago, when Starbucks started having issues with its workforce. So the general workforce felt they were overtaxed and, they were really working hard and not being supported by the company. And so we had this, union drive, and a small group of workers in one warehouse really started this, campaign against the company. We're seeing it now with these economic, boycotts and stuff like that. And it's not just about corporate greed. It's how we're treating our workers. It's the policies, the things that we say we believe in. It's like, all of these. I think there's a bigger moment here for consumers who are really standing up.
Yeah. As you said, it's a whole myriad of issues that are being brought to the forefront. Labor conditions and just work environments. The Starbucks stores were saying, "Hey, we got too many drinks to make, and we can't make them all." So, you got that, and certainly labor forces talking about unfair conditions. I mean, that goes back to the Ford Motor Company in 1917 when the
assembly
workers
line
got religion. So none of
well,
this
it's
is
interesting.
new. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying none of it's new. It's just being manifested in different ways, and social media allows it to take on just a broader scale.
Right. Well, I have to say, though, in the case of the Starbucks, having recently analyzed the last 10 years of their performance, their profits over the last, couple of years have really tanked. And so although this kind of came up as like a worker, being overworked and too many drinks and the mobile ordering and, all these operational inefficiencies, the workers were right. It has been inefficient over the past 2 years. So I think when we unveil some of the points behind the consumer activism, there's some truth that's behind that. And then the other thing I want to mention, which I'm sure, Warren, you have an opinion on, this is such a challenging time for retailers. I mean, we have all these levers that we can't actually measure what is actually impacting the business. We have the whole tariffs that are coming down and, retailers trying to respond to that. We have inflation pressures, right? So prices going up and, what are we doing with our cost of goods and how are we trying to offset that? We have this uncertainty with our consumer mindset. The political, landscape in the U.S. right now is burdensome on our, consumers. So you have all these levers, and it's just a really challenging time to then layer on top of all this, or maybe it's because of all this, these boycotts.
Yeah. How do you isolate any of those individual elements that you mentioned, short of asking every single shopper when they come out of the store, what impacted your purchasing today? you're just not going to get it. So, uh, uh, as we both said, and lots of other people saying it too, very hard to measure. And I think if nothing else, it does bring to the forefront that these issues and gets some conversations going about whether these are good things or bad things, and what role corporate America should be playing in social issues. So you may not get hard numbers, but you're getting the discussion, and I think there's some merit to that.
Oh, that's a great point, and I agree. Yeah, I mean, corporate America is part of the community, right? We like to kind of put corporate America kind of on the side, like this big corporate America, corporate greed, but it's
Yep.
actually in every community. And it's great to have these issues, bubbling up in conversation. So I do think that's a positive outcome. Are you skeptical about the effectiveness of the boycotts from a financial perspective?
So, full disclosure, I'm skeptical about almost everything these days. So I may not be the most objective about this, yes, but I'm very skeptical about how this is going to impact the bottom line. You know, you look at Walmart. Walmart's a $600 billion company with I don't know, 6,000 stores, 10,000 stores around the world. So if 0.1% of the shoppers in the U.S., and I picked out Walmart, decide to boycott it, is that a rounding error? Is that something that you can quantify? I just think you can't,
Hmm.
uh, because uh, the, they're going to talk about tariffs. They're going to talk about politics, and in my mind, those will have inflation. Those will have much more of an impact than these social protests.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. I think the inflationary pricing is really problematic for today's consumer. I think the other thing is, like you had mentioned about this voice of social issues coming out, some of this could really lend a negative spotlight on companies. And maybe that does then question consumers where they're going to purchase or spend their money.
Yeah. Um, uh, this would require the typical consumer to go onto a company's website and read their 10K and find out where they donated money to, and where they stand on these things. And if you're a shopper, hey, I just need to buy some more toilet paper, or I need to, I'm looking for a t-shirt or a blender. I just think shoppers are not that conscientious.
Ah,
And
yeah.
again, that's my skepticism and cynicism rolled into all of it. So um, it's questionable how much these are going to play on things. Yeah.
I think the other thing, because it's interesting. You're absolutely right. I don't know one consumer that is going to go through and read these annual reports or the 10K reports. Some reports are, 600 pages. So no one's going to do that. And, but I am concerned that a lot of the information that gets out there, is, not exactly correct. And so now we have this, what I call this sound bit, society where they're just grabbing on the sound bites of things and then acting on those sound bites. And so when we have some of these, grassroots activism, things that are coming up, how do consumers understand what is actually real and what's not real, and what's being slated one way, but maybe not exactly true? So, do companies have any way of kind of getting back out there and discussing what it is that they're doing, or things that people are saying about the company, what actions they're taking?
Yeah. Wait, you're telling me that everything on the internet's not true? Oh my God, this this is unbelievable. I never knew that. Uh, but you're right, and people believe it, and they also, we're all guilty of tuning out the sources that we don't want to hear from and focusing on those that we do. Uh, so it's not just misinformation; it's information that is filtered, and you try not to think it's biased, but it probably is, and so you're just not getting accurate information. And again, the shoppers that want to do their due diligence, it's a pretty short list of people that will do that. So, but I come back to the most effective things all these protests will do is at least get some visibility for these issues, and I think there's value in that.
I definitely agree. And I also think beyond revenue, right? We're talking about an economic input. What I think you and I both agree, the economic impact on companies is, especially large companies, is very small. But you're right about the voices. The voices aren't just about, the spending of the dollar, but workers are choosing which companies to work for or not work for, right? And so
Yeah.
that impacts the company. And there's, influencers out there. So it's interesting. I think we're going to see more and more of these kind of grassroots boycotts, and I think
Yeah.
they're going to have different social issues. And what do we say to the consumer? Like, what advice can we give to consumers and or retailers?
Well, there will be more. I agree. There will be more of these, particularly if this round continues to kind of get some visibility, even if they're not having huge impacts on these companies. So I'm not sure what you tell the consumer. How do you just don't take don't take these things at face value that this is going to. I mean, first of all, that everything some of these folks are saying is true or isn't filtered or slanted in some way, and that your actions, may or may not have much of an impact. So, I think you got to pick and choose what you're going to believe in, because there's just too much of this, um, and it becomes overwhelming and uh, as a result, kind of ineffective.
Yeah, it is very overwhelming. I mean, I would say to consumers, fact check and stand up for what you
Yeah.
believe in, stand up for the social issues you believe in. I would tell retailers, be transparent with your customers, be transparent, let them know what you are or aren't doing. And I think that builds loyalty if you're just honest with your consumer base. So,
Well, and you got to come back to Costco. Whether you agree with Costco's stands on things, they're out there and they're saying, this is what we believe in. This is what we're going to do. We're not wishy-washy about it. And I don't think that was necessarily a decision based on business first.
right.
Sure, they had to say, we think this is going to be good for our business. But I think it was just Costco saying, in our opinion, we're going to do the right thing. And so I applaud companies like Costco that are taking a stand and are not, as you said, they're being transparent and they're not, wishy-washying the words. This is who we
No,
are.
or
This is what we believe in.
I love it. Yeah. And well, I'll give you a little fun tip, Warren, and you probably are one too. I'm a Costco holic.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I'm with you on that. I am very proud of the company for making a stance and, putting out there what they believe in. So a great way to end our podcast. Any other closing thoughts, Warren?
No, but if you're going to Costco, could you pick me up some, 55-gallon drum of mayonnaise? I really need some. So I would appreciate that. Just ship it down here. So yeah, complicated
Uh,
issues. If I were a retailer, I would say, oh my God, I got enough problems. I don't know how to deal with this one. So not easy. But
nope.
nobody ever said retail was easy. So yeah.
No, it's very complex business. So thank you. And thank you to our listeners. If you have any comments, feedback, please reach out to us on thebrumreport.com under contact us, and make sure you link in with us and love and share our content out in the marketplace. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Bye. Thanks.